I started reading the Bible and I was like, what does it say about it? And then after reading about that, well, what does it say about abortion? What does it say about marriage? What does it say about raising my kids? And it was just, I couldn't get enough. And that's how it felt. That's how it impacted me immediately.
Welcome. It's the Colorado Homeschool Podcast, interviewing experts, parents, graduates, all here to help you navigate this incredible journey called homeschooling. And if you're looking for resources, tips, and help, go to CHEC.org. You'll find what you need. In the meantime, subscribe, follow along. Well, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kashia Davis. I'm your host for this interview today. And we are going to have a great conversation with my new friend, Lisa Eldfrick. Maybe you don't know that name, but you might know her father's name. Her father is Jack Phillips, owner of Masterpiece Cake Shop. So Lisa is a second-generation homeschool mom. She has 3 kids, ages, 16 to 10. So you're in the thick. You've got some fun ages and some fun things happening, but I'm going to pass it right to Lisa and help her and let her kick it off and tell us what happened that so drastically and dramatically changed your family's life and what made us all know who Jack Phillips is in 2012.
Well, thank you so much, Kashia. And I love that you said fast friend when we were praying earlier, because when I met you, I was so thankful that I got to meet you. I was like, this is a lady I would love to know because you just shine Jesus. So
praise
I'm
the Lord.
happy
Thank
to
you.
be your friend. So happy. Well, in 2012, it was July 19th, we had 2 gay gentlemen came into our shop, and it was a really, really busy day. And usually myself or one of our other girls that were working there, we would handle all the customers, but we were all really busy. So I looked over at my dad and I was like, hey, Dad, can you handle, can you take them? And they kind of wandered over to the wedding desk, which doesn't necessarily mean they're here to get a wedding cake. It might mean maybe they were brothers and getting an anniversary cake for their parents, or who knows? You just don't know. So my dad goes over, he introduces himself. Hey, I'm Jack. And they introduce themselves, and they sit down at the desk, and my dad sits down and he goes, what can I do for you? And they said, well, we need a wedding cake. We're getting married. And so my dad, he just real politely said, oh, I'm sorry, guys. That's just something I can't do. And they said, what? And he's like, yeah, I don't make cakes for same-sex weddings, but I have, I can make you anything else that we make in our shop. We have birthday cakes, retirement, graduation, all that kind of stuff. This is just one of the cakes I don't do. And what happened then is they stood up, swore at him, one, flipped him off, walked out one door, the other walked out the other door. And my dad kind of stood up going, well, that was weird. We have turned away same-sex wedding cakes before. So this wasn't the first time. It's not something that happens very often, but it was the first time the reaction was so strong. And so my dad walked over and he and I kind of made eye contact, and he's like, that was different. And I was like, okay. And pretty soon he got a phone call, and he said it was the mother of one of the gentlemen, and she asked him, are you the one who just turned away the 2 gay men? My dad said, I didn't turn anybody away. I just couldn't make the cake they were asking for. And she said, okay, and hung up. So you can see the whole thing happened within 20 seconds. It was very short. And then he started getting phone calls almost immediately, just hateful calls, every phone call that he picked up. And normally we would answer the phone. And after just a couple, my dad looked at the girls. He said, I don't want any of you answering the phone. I will be the only one to answer the phone. And so, and normally my dad's the kind of guy who, if he's here, we're open. So if he gets here at 7 a.m. and we don't open till 10, the doors are unlocked, he's open. If he's here till 8 p.m, we're still open. But on this particular day, it had been so hard with all the hate that had come at him that at that time we were open till 6 o'clock, and at 6 o'clock, he stopped answering the phone, locked the doors. He was like, that's enough for today. And so it was just a instant wave of hate. And I remember he said that he had to run to the grocery store on his way home. And when he got there, he said he felt that everybody here hates him. he was like, everybody hates me. That's just how it felt because he'd been hearing it
Mhm.
all day long. And he remembered, and then God just gave him such peace as like, no, they hate me. They don't hate you. And
Mhm.
this is not your battle. And my dad just like, it just, the fear went away. And for the last 12 and a half years, he's never been afraid. And he's just been able to calmly and amazingly peaceful go through all of this. And because God just gave him everything he needed to handle it and within such a short time. So
Wow,
that's how it
Lisa,
started.
and it sounds like it started strong and started
Yeah,
quickly, the
yeah,
persecution. And you said
yeah,
it already, this happened in 2012, almost 13 years ago. This summer will be
right.
13 years. And this battle is really still ongoing, right? I mean, you've had some victories, but then some
Yes, and
continuing
actually,
attacks.
as of right now, nobody's suing us. Our last court case that we went to court for was the last time we went to court was in October, and we won. That was at the Colorado State Supreme Court, and we won there. So right now, we're still, I mean, we're still with attorneys and everything. Alliance Defending Freedom is our attorneys, and they have taken care of us for 12 years and not charged my dad anything.
Mm,
And he
wow.
always says, I couldn't even take a lawyer to lunch, let alone to the United States Supreme Court. So it's amazing. But yeah,
Wow.
so yeah, it's not actively going right now, but it is because we are still, if my dad needs to speak somewhere, we still have attorneys have to check thing. It's just so we're still in
Mhm.
it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the story is it made national news, so a lot of people are very familiar with the Masterpiece Cake Shop, and have heard it. And I hate that you guys became the token case. I know that there have been others, but what I really want to talk to you about is from a homeschool perspective, from a mom raising children. You had two at the time, right? And now you have three, and they were
Yes.
young. I think you were just, what did you say? She was 5, your
Yeah.
oldest, when this happened? Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Maybe
you were
4.
just yeah, they were just getting into seeing all this and family-run business, so that's what I really wanna talk to you about is how this impacted you, because I don't own a cake shop. I don't have a public-facing business, and many of the homeschool families that are listening to this won't necessarily either, but we're all training our children in the way they should go,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And the world
Yes.
it's topsy-turvy right now, isn't it? Where
Oh,
truth
it's a
is
mess.
being touted as bigotry and, so yeah, so let's talk about that from that standpoint of your children. And how many siblings do you have?
I have 2 siblings. I'm the youngest. We're like stair steps. There's a point in the year where we are 1 age away from each other, so we're very, very close.
Okay. Okay. So, and this is a family-run business, so you guys are very knit together and dealing with this persecution together. So can you bring me back? Like, I almost got teary-eyed when you said your dad immediately was like, nobody else is allowed to answer the phone. Like he stepped into the fire
Yeah.
for you.
Um, that is my dad. If I could even back up a little bit, this wasn't the first time that we've been called a bigot or the first time that had to stand up for our faith in ways that, anyways, so I was homeschooled in the 80s, early 90s. And back then, of course, in Colorado, homeschool was just not really a thing. But my dad had my mom stay home to homeschool us. And so he worked hard to make sure that, I've heard you say like we're living a 1 income family in a 2 income world. And thankfully back then we rented a duplex that we had an incredible rent for like a long time. Our landlord was amazing. Just small gifts like that God gave us so that my mom could stay home with us. Um, but we had to stand up, you know, early. I remember my mom even at a homeschool group, because she disagreed with another family because they were going against something the Bible said, then they called her a bigot. And I remember that I was like third, fourth grade when I first heard my mom, but my mom it hurts, but that didn't make her waver. And my dad, we don't celebrate Halloween. And when we opened the shop, we opened it in 1993, and my mom and dad laid out some things that what are we going to do and everything. And one of the first things they decided, and believe it or not, they had already chosen not to do same-sex wedding cakes way back in 1993, and it wasn't even on the radar of Colorado. I mean,
Right.
even when the couple came in, um, same-sex marriage wasn't legal in Colorado. I mean, like, so God had given them this decision already way back in the 90s. And also they decided, we're not going to, since, we don't celebrate Halloween, I don't see it as something that Jesus would do. And so we had to, right from the get-go, say, well, we're not going to do Halloween cakes. And what's crazy about that is in the bakery business, Halloween is like Christmas to everywhere else. It's one of the biggest holidays. And we opened our shop in September of 93, so Halloween was the following month. And so we were tested like right away. Like, if we're going to do this, our business just might not even make it through till Christmas, because, we're giving up we're just opening. We should do everything to get us more business. And so, but of course, God carried us through and honored, I think because we honored him. I know because my parents honored him. And anyway, so I saw my parents model it from when I was young. They just did. They modeled it for my brother, sister, and I, and that was just our life. And I was used to being not able to do what other kids might be able to do. And, I would, when I was younger, sometimes I didn't like it or whatever, but I look back and I'm so thankful, because
Yeah.
I just look back at the decisions they made, and they made it because they wanted us to follow the Lord, and giving us these small steps when we were younger made it so that when my dad said, no, I can't make that cake to that couple, he wasn't like, this is a big deal. What am I going to say? He was acting in obedience. This was who he was. He's follows the Lord. He's got to do what God tells him to. And so it wasn't like, what am I going to say? He'd been saying it forever, since he'd become a Christian. And both he and my mom became Christians after my brother and sister were born, before I was born. So they were late coming into Christianity, but man, they have lived it out since then. So.
Oh, I love that. I'm a first generation believer. My family are still not believers, and
Oh,
to see the quick impact and to see an authentic life changed is really inspiring. But I was just having a conversation with somebody where we were talking about how, we want to train our children to go and to walk with the Lord, but there is no forcing anybody to. They have to have a personal relationship. But oftentimes that faith can be caught because we're being authentic. And that's what I'm hearing you say is your dad was authentic. That was who he was. It wasn't surprising when he was like, I'm so sorry, I can't make that cake for you, because it went
right,
against who he was and what he believed, right?
right.
So tell me how that has impacted you in your family's life with your children as you're going through this very long drawn out trial, which, like you said, just opening your cake shop, you guys were faced with, we're going to stand on this conviction to not make Halloween cakes and see if the Lord blesses. Clearly, his hand has been on your business. And now not doing wedding cakes because of this.
It immediately impacted my faith because at that point, when they came into the cake shop back in 2012, I definitely would have told them no as well, because I was under the umbrella of my dad. So I'm at the cake shop. It's safe. This is what dad believes. And so I can say it easily if they have a problem. Hey, dad, come out here. Like, I didn't have to worry about me outside of the shop. But when that happened, I was like, what would I say if because I saw the immediate reaction this time, I was like, what would I say? What does the Bible say? Would I say, like, say I have a gay friend and they want me to go to their wedding? Would I say no or yes? Would I pretend like it's not a big deal? Would I live my Christian faith while I'm in the eyes of my parents, or while I'm anyway? So a whole lot happened to me, and I went home that night and I opened my Bible. I was like, what does it say about homosexuality? Because up until this point, I felt like I had just been like I know I'm saved. Like, I got saved when I was 7. I've never doubted that I'd been saved, but I felt like up until this point I was sleepwalking. Like I was not living out my faith. God was definitely not Lord of my life that anybody could see. And so I started reading the Bible and I was like, what does it say about it? And then after reading about that, well, what does it say about abortion? What does it say about marriage? What does it say about raising my kids? And it was just, I couldn't get enough. And that's how it felt. That's how it impacted me immediately, because I knew if
Wow.
I had not been under my parents and been asked the same question, I would have been like, oh yeah, I'll go to your wedding or whatever. I'll support that. And that is not what the Bible says. And I realized, I'm saying I'm a Christian. I am, but I am, who would know? Who would know outside of, who my family was? And so I really had to start figuring out, is this what I believe? And thank the Lord, it is what I believe. And I do love the Lord so much that I couldn't get enough. And at that time, we were not homeschooling yet. We started homeschooling 9 years ago. And through all of this, I won't go into detail right now, but I did lose my marriage through all of our court case stuff. But one of the best ways that I could see how it's impacted my children and I is the day before we started homeschooling is when my ex-husband left us. And if I had been still sending them to a school, even a great Christian school or anything, if they had to be away from me during that time and with all the court case stuff, it would have been too much. God was so faithful to make sure that they were with me. They could have hugs anytime they needed. If they were emotionally overwhelmed, we could just stop. And, they got to be with grandma and grandpa. And even though the court case and everything, they got to see grandma and grandpa model how to be strong but peaceful and to pray for our enemies. Like, it was a, a wonderful impact, if I could say. I don't know. My kids would not be so strong in the Lord now if this all hadn't happened. Neither would I.
It blows my mind. And I think maybe it's because American Christianity is like, it's going to be good. It's going to be perfect. You're going to be so blessed. But that's not real Christianity. When you read the
Right.
Bible, countless times we see people who go through suffering. And you and I were talking about Joseph and how he was thrown into prison, betrayed by his brothers, falsely accused, then left there, even though people made promises to him. And the Lord, and when he had a chance to avenge his brothers, instead he said, what you meant for evil, God used for good. And that is the beautiful thing I'm hearing you say, the testimony of how your faith needed to become real and authentic to you.
Absolutely.
And how did you, so you said, gosh, just the day-to-day, can you think back to, and even still, because I know it's still fairly fresh, because the court process can be so long and tedious. How did you practically comfort your children? Was there a time when they were like, what do they call your dad? Do they call him grandpa or papa?
Grandpa. Yep. Grandpa
Grandpa,
and
do they
grandma.
say, Grandpa, just, you don't have to fight this battle? Or was there ever that fear that you had to help them through? You're like, no
No,
way.
no,
What was their
I mean,
reaction then?
it's like learning English, okay? When you're born in an English-speaking family, you just grow up speaking it, right? And that's what it's been in our family. It's been you just speak facing persecution. Yeah, it's just a normal part of my girls and my life. It has been very normal. Back when, so I was rethinking, and it was Summit. I think she was almost 4 when it started, my oldest. So she was even younger than I was telling you. I was trying to think back. But she, within between 3 and 4 years old or somewhere in there, um, my dad, so Ever was up in like a storage room in her little pack and play, sound asleep because she was just a baby. And Summit and I were downstairs in our lower part of the cake shop working on some stuff. And my dad came down and he just looked at me serious and he said, Lisa, I want you and Summit, you stay down here. Don't come upstairs for anything. And he says, somebody just called me and they're on their way to blow my head off. That's what they've told me. And I need you to stay down here. Do not come upstairs no matter what happens. And I was like, okay. And of course, he called the cops, but the person was calling him constantly, giving him new updates on where he was, what street he's on, as he's getting closer to the shop. And so obviously that's terrifying. And I'm like,
That's
nobody's going to kill my
horrifying.
dad.
I think
Um,
crazy.
it is crazy. But Summit, so we were just down there and we just kind of sat together and we were praying. And Summit goes, why does somebody want to kill grandpa? And I said, well, because he loves Jesus and they don't like that. And she says, okay. And so, like, that was her first, I think, personal encounter with having to, and I mean, she still remembers it to this day. But that was like the quick mom explanation. You do those things when, you're homeschooling. You're like, okay, I'm not going to go into detail about homosexuality and what the Bible says and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, he loves Jesus. Some people don't like that, and it was just like, and I felt like, and that's what we've been doing this whole time is whenever these situations come up or whatever, you just give them the simple answer. And obviously, nobody came and killed my dad, and he's okay, so we're good there. So,
Wow. So in that moment, so you guys prayed? You prayed with
yeah.
her?
Yep.
Yeah. And were there other moments where you did feel like, well, there's some fear and we need to deal with this? Did they go to court with you and see this played out in person?
Yeah. So they've gotten to see so much. I mean, there's like my dad wrote a book, and someday I need to write a book from my perspective, or maybe my kids will write a book from their perspective because the amount of things they've seen, and they sometimes are just the silent watchers because they're always up in our front room. And so they've seen people spit on our windows or, come in and yell obscenities at my dad or whatever. I remember one time we had two people come in and they were just, I don't know if they were, well, I'm just going to say possessed or maybe drugged out or I don't know, but they hated my dad with such a vengeance. It was like you could see it in their skin. I don't know how to describe it, but they came up and um, they were filming us while they were asking us questions. And so I had my dad come over because it was just him and I. And all I kept saying was like, are you okay? Do you need something? Like, just because they were so hateful that I don't know. But my girls were sitting right there watching the whole thing. And, when they finally left, it was like looking at my girls and they're just like, whoa. And it's like, yeah, let's pray. And I mean, obviously, while they were in the room, we were praying. You're just like, whatever this is that they brought in, we need to pray. And so the girls have seen that, like, yeah. So they've seen a lot.
Wow.
Mm.
Yeah. So I'm listening to and I'm thinking, gosh, a lot of us are not going to relate to some people coming and calling and giving them a blow by blow. I'm on this street. I'm coming with a gun to shoot you. But we are seeing right now a lot of persecution in our world. I mean, when we're recording this, just last week, there was a slaughter of Christians in Syria. And now, granted, we're not in Syria, we're in America, but in America, just truth is being undermined. And like you said, just the simplicity of what God says and the way God ordains family and the way God ordains this order, a lot of people are kicking against that. And so your children are seeing that. And have you seen them? And because now they're 16 down to 10, right?
Right.
And again, we're trying to train up our children in the way they should go. We're talking about leadership and how do you help your children step into leadership? So can you think of some practical, it sounds like you had no choice.
Right.
They had to step into it.
Right. Well, it's kind of like this thing when people come up and they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I can homeschool my kids." And I'm like, you taught them to walk. Like, you've been homeschooling them since they were born. Like, you've been planning their life since they were in your tummy. Like, you're already doing it. So the only thing is adding a couple of academic books. And thankfully nowadays there's so many resources. You don't even have to be like the world's best teacher, but that's what it's like. Oh, I wouldn't know how to teach them that is because they're already growing up in it. And I'm so thankful that I have my mom and dad and my sister and my brother. So both my brother and sister, my brother's just about to graduate from seminary. He lives in California with his wife and son. And then my sister is a missionary up in Canada in Montreal with Child Evangelism Fellowship. And so through all of this, even though they've been far away, they backing us with prayer. And you sent me questions and ideas of topics we would talk about, and I sent it to my sister because she knows me better than anybody, and she also is just so gifted in organization, and she's the director there in Montreal, and so she's just loves the Lord, and I've had these people in my life to influence my kids.
Oh, that's
So
so great.
when we're teaching them about leadership, I'm mom, and so what I say goes. But I have all these strong, wise people behind me helping me to know what to say that's going to be the law in our house. And um yeah, my kids, we love to witness to the other kids in our neighborhood. Right now there's really no kids. It's kind of sad. We're kind of on a slump right now, but that's okay. Kids will come. But my youngest, she's led a little neighborhood kid to the Lord, just from being friends, inviting them to our home, and just things like that. My oldest, she does youth missions each summer, and she goes out and teaches kids Bible clubs and stuff. And then she did it last year, but they're all, they help in Awana. Summit's the worship leader at Awana. Ever helps with the little cubbies. She just loves the preschoolers, and just all of them, they have something that's just exceptional. And it's because I don't know, sometimes I say, I got it really easy um, raising my kids in this environment because
I can't
they've
even
had
believe
to
you would say
see.
that. Wow.
Well, I mean, I would have had to do training on my own, you know, thankfully, though, I don't think anybody has to do it on their own. God has surrounded us. Sometimes we just have to go and find those wise people, and, the iron sharpens iron, and we be careful of who we're yoked with. And I tell my kids, when God says not to be unequally yoked, that doesn't just mean in marriage, that means in who our confidants, and, who we seek advice from. They better be pushing us towards the Lord. And so, I don't know. Somebody told me a long time ago to surround your kids with a few other adults that you trust, because one day they're not going to talk to you, but if they've built these relationships with these adults, they'll talk to them. And so, like, I've just always tried to do that. That was the best advice I think I ever got, because just trying to make sure that the adults in my kids' lives care that they walk with the Lord, and
Right.
challenge them to do that. And then, I don't know. So
Lisa, I love it. Everything that you're saying, it's so interesting. Like I said, I can't believe you would say that it was so great and you're so blessed to be in this situation because you're in the fiery furnace. You are. But you're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, not just from the Bible, but in real life with flesh. Praise the Lord. And that testimony is obviously evident in your children also being little evangelists and going out and sharing. It makes me think of Revelations where it says they overcame by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. Your children at 16, 13, and 10, is that right?
Yep.
Did I get the ages right?
Yes, you did.
At those sweet young ages already have a testimony and a witness. And yeah, Lisa, you're a delight. I really appreciate everything you have to say. And I just want to add one little note. You mentioned that your marriage, that you lost your husband right before you started homeschooling. And that is where I met you, is that we do an outreach called Castor Line Banquet, which was named after the family that started this. It's just
Yeah.
an outreach to single moms, because what you're saying is the most true. It's true, I think, for single moms and also families, is find community. Find community that will be iron sharpening iron, that's going to exhort you to continue to stay strong and circle around you in order to stir you up towards good works, right?
Right.
And
May
it
I
sounds
say,
like I love your community.
yes, me too. I love it. I've heard it takes a village to raise a child, but I've seen the village and I don't want them raising my kid. That may be
Right.
true of like most out there, but I am glad I have found a little village that does a really good job raising my children with me. But I did want to, if it's okay, I'd like to say one more thing about my marriage.
Please.
Just the man that left us 9 years ago, he and I would both tell you now that man is dead. And God has worked so much in our lives. He's just the most wonderful father to my daughters. He's a wonderful friend to me. And he he worked so hard to be close with us. I have full custody. I always have. And he was completely on board with homeschooling because we had talked about it before he left. And still to this day, he is so thankful that we homeschool just so, we can breaks and stuff. He can come see the girls or, they can go over and see him and we don't have to worry about school schedules and stuff. I mean, it has made it, anyway,
Very
so I just
flexible.
wanted to make sure. Yeah. And they just love him so much. So.
Oh, that's awesome. And again, it's the same thing. The Lord can redeem. He's totally able.
Yes.
He's on the throne. He uses those things. Wow. Well, awesome. I feel like there's so many more things we can unpack.
No.
And maybe we'll get to hear more of your story down the road. Thank you for
That'd be
being a
great.
guest today. As we wrap up today, we're asking all of our homeschool moms, what would you say is one great, the best, or good homeschool tip that you received, whether it pertains to this topic or not?
Oh, man.
I know. So yeah, put everybody on the spot at the last.
Well, one funny tip would be it doesn't matter how cute your little homeschool room is, you're always going to end up at the couch. That I learned when I was a kid, and I know it's true now. So careful how
That's
much you
true.
invest in those schoolrooms because the couch, invest in good soft pillows and blankets because that's where you're going to do most school. But it doesn't have to be perfect. And one thing I've realized just from being in the cake shop too is everybody has a story. I have a story, but somebody else who we've never heard of also has an intense story. And each one of us, we need encouragement from other moms. We need to not be judged. We need to not judge other moms. I remember I was the perfect mother until I had kids. And
Exactly.
that's how it is. And so sometimes just making sure we give grace to other moms because they're trying to survive the same way we all are. And just, yeah, I think having friends, having somebody in your life like my parents or my sister, being able to tell you you're doing good, keep going, this is worth it. So it doesn't have to be perfect.
That is a great way to end our conversation. His mercies are new every morning. His grace is sufficient. Amen and amen. Lisa,
Amen
thank you
and
for being
amen.
with us today. And thank you for our audience. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to put the link to the Masterpiece Cake Shop if you guys want to go check them out. They're up in Lakewood, right?
Yep.
Yep. All right.
And yeah.
No, what were you going to say?
I was going to say you could put the link up. Our attorneys back during COVID, they made an online store for us, which to help us stay afloat. And that's masterpiececakeshop.store. So sometimes our website and the store website get mixed up, but either one or both you could put up. People can navigate, but sometimes it gets confusing. But so anyways.
I'll put both. We'll link
There
both.
you go.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Because if somebody hears this out of state, maybe they'll order some cookies
Maybe
or
they'll
whatever.
order some brownies. I don't know.
Yeah, I love it. Okay. Thanks again, Lisa.
Thank you, Kashia. This was wonderful. I had such a fun time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us today. The Colorado Homeschool Podcast is a ministry of Christian home educators of Colorado. We have been motivating parents to disciple the next generation by embracing home discipleship that is Christ-centered, parent-directed, and free from government control. We invite you to join us in this mission. If you want to support homeschooling in Colorado, go to CHEC.org/donate. In the meantime, share this with your friends and make sure you subscribe. That really helps us. Thank you.
Brought to you by thepodcastupload.com, empowering faith-driven voices.